cause girls is players too. Uh, yeah, yeah, cause girls is players too. Keep playing. Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Ma. Welcome to the next episode of Girls Are Players Too. We're doing things a little different today. I'm the daughter.
Hey, and I am the mom.
So we have an exciting I can't wait to give y'all this episode today. But to kick things off, the NBA playoffs, the finals starts today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't believe that from October to June, we are at the point where we are about to crown a new NBA champion.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought that back in October you would have the Thunder and the
Nobody expected.
Pacers?
Nobody expected. Now maybe OKC, but nobody expected the Indiana Pacers. And you could say people might say, oh, they were had bets going or back then, but if it was a bingo board, they were not on the bingo board.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So we'll see what happens. Game one is tonight, so I'm just looking forward to seeing how that goes. But Ma, what do we have for the people today? What do we have in
Well,
store?
we decided to, since we've hit the pinnacle of our podcast and we've crossed over to episode 10, we decided to invite a guest into our platform and somebody who we don't rarely hear from, or who we rarely hear from. And I think, it's pretty exciting when you can open up the airwaves to hear, to get a voice and perspective from someone that has been through an NBA championship, someone who has experienced life within the NBA and then transition outside of the NBA. And there she is.
Good
Good
morning, ladies.
morning.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
ladies. How are you today?
Good.
We
Real
are
good.
excited. So, what we have today is the wife of a former professional athlete, NBA player, ABA player. We have Miss Elores Chones in the studio.
Woo!
Woo!
Good morning, everyone.
So we bring you Miss Elores Chones. She is the wife of Jim Chones. Now, some of you might say, Jim Chones, wait a minute. Well, Jim has actually been in the news recently. Jim is a former standout athlete from Racine St. Catharines, played high school ball in Racine. He then played college ball at Marquette University. Woo, shout out to my alma
All
mater.
right.
He's a former All-American. And in Jim's third year, he ended up getting drafted and going to play for the New York Nets in the ABA.
Correct.
He moved from the ABA into the NBA. He was actually drafted by the Lakers, so they had his rights. And throughout his professional career, he played for the New York Nets. He played for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He won an NBA championship with the Los Angeles Lakers. He played overseas. And so just recently, Jim's jersey number from Marquette was retired, number 22. He is a Marquette Hall of Famer. He is Cleveland Walk of Fame Hall of Famer. And so Jim has certainly been pretty active. He transitioned from the NBA to actually be a color analyst in TV and in radio.
Correct.
And we thought, we don't ever hear from the wives of the NBA players. And since NBA finals are kicking off, we're going to crown a new champion. Who better to talk about the life as the wife and a mom of an NBA athlete than to bring somebody into the studio. So, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. Yeah. Mhm.
It's early for the people, so
It
hopefully
is.
this wasn't too bad for you.
Well, not for me. I know it's super early for you guys being on the, well, you being on the West Coast time, so you're up very early. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we are thankful that we have a lot of these under our belt, so it's not so bad now. And makeup
Okay.
does wonders, right?
It does.
So, as we
Yeah.
kick things off, I wanted to just, we talked a little bit about Jim and his transition and his journey through the NBA. When did you meet and how did you become Elores Chones?
Well, I met Jim when he got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He came via the New York Nets, and I think the Los Angeles Lakers actually had his rights, and that's how the Cavaliers got him from LA, and he ended up here in Cleveland. Yeah. So I met
Okay.
him when he did come here. He had already been playing for a while when I met him. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Cleveland basically became the home that you established for your family and your foundation. So when Jim was traded from Cleveland, I believe his next opportunity moved to the Lakers. So
Yep.
how does that work when players get traded? At that time, did you have kids? Like what was the process throughout that whole transition?
Well, at that time, normally when guys would get traded back then, they would go ahead and go to the team, especially if it's during the season. So you can't miss games, so you have to hit the ground running basically. So they pick up their gear and they go on and meet the team wherever they are, either in the city or state where they're traded to or on the road. And at that time, it was left up to the wife. We had one child. My daughter was 3 at the time, of going on 4, and we had one child at the time. So it was really up to us to get things together, pack up the house, reach out to someone in the other city and find out housing. Most of the time, you end up in a hotel or something like that until you figure out what neighborhood you want to be in, where you want to live, where your kids would go to school, all those kind of important things, doctor's office, proximity to the arena. You don't want to be too far away from all the things that you have to have access to on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
once he left, we came about maybe 2 weeks after he left. At that time, it was just myself and my daughter, my older daughter. We didn't have the other kids yet.
Yeah, so you were the one making these moves and transitions while Jim was playing. Talk about that. Just
Well,
having
it was
to.
it was a little bit difficult because you don't know the city and you
Hmm.
don't really know anyone. You don't know any of the other wives or anything like that yet. So you're coming in totally new, brand new, and a stranger to all the environments and everything like that. So basically, you try to reach out to maybe an agent that knows another agent there that knows someone that could connect you with another wife that's there already. They can tell you, well, hey, this is a good area to go. This might be a good place to put your child in daycare or in school. So you basically shut everything down. If you want to maintain, we maintain Cleveland as our home base. Even when he played in Los Angeles and he played in Washington, we always kept home base someplace because the NBA is so in flux. You might be here one season, then someplace else the next season. So you have to have someplace to stay grounded and call home, and which is what Cleveland was for us at that time. So yeah, but now it's a lot different now because the teams have entire departments dedicated to relocating players and families and finding housing and schools and transporting cars and all that. We had to do all that on our own back in the day, and it was a lot of work. But I mean, granted, we were not working a regular 9 to 5. Most of us were not, so we did have the time to put all those things together and make the transition as smoothly as possible because you don't want to burden the guys with where are we going to live, how are we going to do this, because they're so focused on playing, they
Right.
don't really think about, well, where are we going to live or what's going to happen with this, that, and the other, who's going to close up the house. They don't think about those things. And you have to be able to maneuver on your own and figure things out.
That's crucial, right? And
Oh,
like you
yeah.
said, we don't necessarily hear from the wives or the girlfriends that have to make that decision. Now,
Hmm.
we talked about tonight starts the NBA finals, so we're
Hmm.
gonna have a new NBA champion. The past 8 9 years, we haven't had back to back champions, but your family is fortunate to actually have a ring. So, talk to us about that experience of being on a championship roster.
Well,
Yes.
our that was actually after Jim got traded to the Lakers, and it was Magic Johnson's rookie year that we went to the Los Angeles Lakers. He got traded from Cleveland there, and we had a good run that year. Although Kareem got injured in the final series against Philadelphia, we were able to come out and become the NBA champions, and it was a fantastic time. It was so exciting. A lot of things went on that we were not aware of because it was our first time dealing with that, being in a championship situation. So the parade kind of got out of hand because we did not know that many people were going to show up for the parade. And it got to the point where the cars were not even able to move through the crowd. So after making that mistake, the next time around, they knew how to have the players on a higher elevation bus going through the crowd and more security and keeping the fans back and not being able to bombard the cars and actually stop the cars from moving. So it was a very exciting time, a lot of fun.
Yeah, not a lot of players, even today, have won championships. So to hear, that Jim won one, but then the other side, like your family going through that, is like
Right.
we're hearing all the
Yeah.
all that goes into that, and I think that is just um, to your point, Ma, about just the piece that you don't hear about, like hearing how the wives
Yeah.
are involved in that process,
Right.
because you
Right.
see the players toting their trophy around and celebrating, but at that time you had a daughter at that
Yes,
time,
we
or
had a
did you have
daughter.
two?
Yeah. No, we
You
just
just
had
had
the
the
one daughter. My other daughter was born. She was born in California once we got traded to the Lakers. But when we first went there, we only had the one child, and she was only, I think, she was 3 at the time, going on 4. So she was still little. So we had to find a daycare or school situation for her because I didn't want to leave her sitting at home all day with me. She needed to be around other kids and learn how to, her new environment, learn more about her new environment. So we did put her in a great daycare that one of the other wives had referred me to. So you do get to talk to the other wives and get to know them and where to shop for groceries and what's a good area where the doctors are. Important things. So you have to learn how to communicate very quickly and very early, so you can survive in those cities.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the Lakers, they had that series Winning Time came out
Hmm.
on HBO, and I remember when Jim was referenced in the series, I'm like, oh, we know them, like, oh my goodness. So I mean, that time, basketball has really evolved since then, but they
Oh,
were at the start of the Showtime Lakers.
right.
And so, when he ended up getting traded, because I think his next move was to the Washington Bullets at the time.
Correct.
So
Yes.
how does that work? Like when you're in contract negotiations or a trade happens, how much of a toll does that take on the family?
Well, it could be stressful. Most of the time, like I said, when the guys are traded, they leave the family like as soon as the trade is done, they're out, they're gone because they have to, learn the new team and get focused on playing it. And that's the main goal for them is to stay focused, continue playing. So we're left behind to pick up the pieces, pack up the housing, pick up the kids, and move to wherever they've been traded to. So it's not an easy transition. You have to be a confident, strong person, independent, and learning how to do things on your own. You can't sit back and want someone else to do it for you at that time. But now things are a lot easier for people now to make that transition, but it still can be stressful on the family and kids in general. But my daughter she wasn't in school yet, so it wasn't such a hard transition for her because she was so young. But as the kids do get older, it can be very traumatic for the kids. Sometimes the wives stay behind. If you have school age kids, you keep them in school because you don't really want to uproot them in the middle of the school year if you don't have to. So
Right.
sometimes you're living in 2 places at one time. And when you get breaks, you'll fly to wherever your husband or the dad is and spend some time, then come back home so the kids can go back to school. So it can be very challenging at times.
Okay.
There's a lot of glamour involved, but there's a lot of challenges as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you make the move. The family is growing. You now are the wife, the mom of 5 kids,
Hmm.
and all 5 of your kids basically got into the family business to play basketball.
They
So,
did.
I mean, was that by design that they have a choice? Like, how did you guys like push them into the sport, or did they have other options?
Well, they had a desire to want to play. Both by the time we had the boys, our triplet sons, Jim was on the downside of his career, so he wasn't playing anymore. So they never really actually. Well, they were little. He was still playing, but they don't remember because they were so young. So by the time they were at the age of 6 or 7 or 8 years old, where they knew what was going on, Jim had finished playing, but he was still with the team. He was broadcasting, so they were around the game, around players all the time, and they just developed a love for the game because that was our life, basketball. And all five of the kids did desire to play. And by them being somewhat taller than most kids, it was easy to make the transition. And Jim was hard on the kids. He worked them hard. He said, if you guys want to play, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of practicing, and the desire to do that. You can't just go out there and just think you're going to throw it up there and it's going to work. You have to put in the hours, put in the work, and you get the results. And we were fortunate enough for all five of them to end up going to Division I colleges playing basketball. And at that time, in the early 2000s, when our kids did go to school, I think we were one of the only families in the United States at the time to have five kids playing Division I basketball.
That is incredible. That
Yeah,
is incredible. And yeah,
yeah.
I know. And but somebody has to be the disciplinarian. I mean, was it you? Was it Jim? And we assume it's Jim because he's the person who played, but I got a sense that Mama, you probably had something to do too.
Oh yeah, I was always a bad guy. It was always like, because Jim was always like, "Oh, come on." He always wanted to give in, but I was always the bad guy. We had standards for our kids in order to play basketball. We always put education first. First and foremost, you have to get your education. That's the most important thing. My kids were small. We deflated a basketball and actually hung it on the wall. So every day they would have to walk past it. And Jim and I, especially me, would express, they would look at the ball and say, "What can you do with the ball that's deflated?" They said, "Well, it's useless. You can't do anything with it." So we instilled in them, that's what you're like without having an education. You're useless. So we always express to them at the beginning of every school year, you have to maintain a certain GPA in order to continue playing. Regardless of what the state requirements were, the Chones requirement was always higher. So, if you messed up, then you didn't play. You would have to sit out until the next semester until you brought those grades up. Then you were allowed to go on and play the next time around. And it did happen once. My son was one of the triplets was in the sixth grade and got a grade he wasn't supposed to get. So he had to sit out and missed a big time tournament. He was one of the better shooters on the team. So, needless to say, the entire team was mad at me. Jim and I had a heated discussion, but he did not play. And not only did he not play, but he had to go and sit in the stands and watch everyone else play. So it was very humiliating and humbling for him and all the other kids, but it worked. And we never had issues at all with my kids as far as being students. So that's why two ended up at Colgate, one at Brown, one at Marquette, and then one at NC State. So they all did very well in college.
Oh my God. And these are some pretty prominent schools. So
Yes, they
I
are.
think Brittany, you about to jump in. What? You got a question, huh?
I just think that's fascinating. Because you hear now that parents parents that have athletes that are amazing, some of them may ride their coattail, and it's just like, we want them to go to the highest level, what have you. But to hear that, I'm glad that you said about education, because that is, once whatever sport they're playing stops,
Right,
you have your education to fall back on. So it's
right.
it's it's a testament to you as being the bad
Thank
guy,
you.
which somebody
Yeah,
has to be.
somebody has to do it. Yep. Yeah, yeah.
but but to see where they all are now,
Hmm.
I mean, just in the careers that they're in, um, it really just comes back to those standards and that foundation that you've laid for them, to be
Hmm.
where they are now. So
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear that, and
yeah,
more. I feel that more families, parents need to hear that, because that education is crucial, especially when you
right,
try to get them into college. They need
right.
those grades.
Right.
And then it's, like if you're playing, if you get hurt, then what?
Right.
There's no guarantee you'll go through your entire college career or professional career without a season-ending injury or a career-ending injury. Then what do you have to fall back on?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Well, you mentioned, just obviously many of the kids, all the kids played at the highest level, but you had a standout daughter. I mean, Kayla
yeah.
ended
Hmm.
up becoming NC State woman that was phenomenal. She actually played in the W,
Hmm.
and but she was named the athlete, the female athlete of the century in the state of Ohio? Like what?
Yeah, she was very very aggressive, and I think one of the things that really helped Kayla, she always played up when she did play. She would play with people that were older, and she played against boys, against her brothers. And I remember summer my sons turned 14. They got taller than Kayla, and they would go out there and they would have some serious battles in the backyard playing. So Jim said, "Well, just leave them alone. Let her figure it out. She can hold her own." And that's how she became such a great player. And then when she played against girls her own age, it was a lot easier for her because girls aren't as strong as guys. We all know that. And guys can be a little bit more aggressive when they play, but she never backed down. And she just always stood her ground. And she was just a very intense and aggressive player, and that helped her get to where she is today.
Okay, so let's just make a small little pivot here because we talk about player development, and you
Hmm.
mentioned Kayla playing against the guys, trying to get stronger. You had triplet boys.
Hmm.
Karita, of course, in her own right, ended up playing at Marquette. But how do you see player development today as opposed to back then? Because again, having a parent who played at the highest level, there weren't trainers and anything back then. You kind of had to have your own self motivation to be out there. But how do you see the NBA right now as it relates to player development or just players coming in and what's different?
Well, one of the biggest changes to me I see is the 3-point shot. That has changed the game to the point where you can win or lose in 3 minutes based on a 3-point shot. You think you have a lead of 20 points, oh, we're going to win this game, and all of a sudden you lose. To me, that's the biggest change that I've seen in the game. And a lot of the fundamentals to me have gone by the wayside, which I think is so crucial, especially if you're a bigger player. You don't see the big guys posting up much like they used to. You don't see them with a drop step like they used to. You don't see them, turning around and dunking on someone or alley oops. Now everybody wants to be a 3-point shooter. You have 7-footers stand out there on a 3-point line rather than going down low where their bread and butter used to be at the time when Jim played. I mean, that's what guys did, but the game has evolved from that way to now where everyone wants to be a shooter. And not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it would be great to see players go back to where the bottom line is putting the basket in the hole. You got to put the basket in the rim in order to win games. You got to make points. You got to score. And I think we've lost a lot of that along the way because you can live and die with the three. If you're good at shooting 3 points, you're great. Okay, you win. But if you're not, then what do you fall back on?
Right.
You know, it's almost like the education thing. You have to have something to fall back on. Your bread and butter is your post play sometimes, especially with the bigger guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the positions are changing now. I mean,
right,
it used to be 1 through 5. That 5 was that center, and
right,
now it's the 5 can be a 3 or a 4, or
right.
because they extend outside that 3 point line. So
You're right. Yeah,
I'm with you because I love making pump fake and going to the post, and then they do the
yeah,
drop step, or just working inside out. But
yeah.
everybody's on the outside
Yeah,
now.
because to me the game has changed. It's not as entertaining as it used to be because
Hmm.
now the guys run down, shoot a three, turn around, run back, run down, shoot a three, turn around, run back. I mean, where's the excitement of getting someone and getting that ball and passing to the post and passing back out to the open man? All the things you used to seeing and see with someone cutting to the basket, making a layup. You just don't see a lot of that anymore. And to me, it's almost not really almost boring, but it's not as entertaining, not as fun to me. That's my
Okay.
opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then when you talked about when we had our chance to talk to you a bit earlier and learn a little bit more about you and Jim's story, one of the things that you had mentioned was how as a wife you actually play a role in the outside noise. So
Right.
back then, if an article was written about Jim or something, you may have some you may need to kind of keep some stuff away.
Right.
But because today we have social media and everything is public, how did that happen? How were you instrumental in trying to help your husband stay focused in what he was doing?
Well, at that time, with everything, like you said, we didn't have social media. It was all in newspapers. So instead of having all the different papers come to the home, I discontinued a lot of the subscriptions so that he wouldn't read it before the game, or I would let him see it after the game because mentally, basketball is a mental game as well as a physical game. And if you see a bad article, if someone says Jim's in a slump, he's not playing well, or he missed this or he missed that, and that's playing on your psyche. When you go out there trying to play, you're focused on, well, they said I didn't do this, I didn't do that, rather than just going out there playing your game. You've gotten caught up into so much of what was written about you, and social media now, it's so hard for these kids to unplug and to put the phone down before the game. But I think it would be a great thing just not to even read all that until after you play, especially like with the playoffs and now the finals coming up, where they're saying this guy can't do that, this guy can't do this, and guys are going at each other on social media, which is so unfortunate because they're all about the same thing, trying to win a game, not to tear down one player. And social media has gotten to a point where guys do go at each other negatively, which I think is really kind of harmful, you know?
Well, keeping with media, because Jim, I believe, retired in the '80s. So, talk about that transition when he retired from playing to moving into the side of media. What did that look like for you and the family?
Uh, it was somewhat of a transition, but because he did all the games, 82 games, he was still on the road the same amount of time as he was when he was playing.
Mm.
So that didn't change because he was still gone. So, but and the summers were a little bit different. He didn't have to train like he did before, and we could do more things as a family, travel as a family, as a group, and not be so, well, dad has to work out, dad has to train. Because during the off season when you're broadcasting, you don't have to do all those things. So that in itself was a big adjustment for us to have to make with him being home all the time in the summer. But during the season, he was still gone the same length of time. Even to this day, he's still on the road during all 82 games plus whatever playoff games you have. So it's you almost feel like a single mom at times. You got to be a strong person, strong individual, and not feel like you lose yourself because the guys are gone or because you're Jim Chones' wife and not Elores Chones. So you have to make sure you don't lose your identity along the way when you're trying to do all and be all, the mom and the dad, because they're on the road. So that life, they're on the road. Yeah.
Wow. So what? Okay, so a couple of the kids are now that's their career. They're in
Right.
professional sports as a career. So what do you? I mean, I guess when you see your dad on TV as an athlete, and then you see him on TV as a commentator, or you hear his voice or whatever, was that something that kind of sparked the girls into, what, we want to do this full time as well, because obviously as a family business the ball is going to stop, but then they actually made the decision, we want to stay connected to the sport somehow as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Because Karita with she was with the Marquette, with the Milwaukee Bucks. After she left Marquette, she stayed in Milwaukee and ended up getting on with the Bucks, and she's been there for 23 years or 25 years. She's been there for a long time now. And Kayla transitioned from playing in the W. She played about 10 years in Europe, where she did win a championship with Israel. Then she came home and she worked with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then from there she ended up going with the New York Knicks. So where she is today. So they love the game. The love of the game didn't end just because they stopped playing. They
Right.
wanted to continue in that environment, in that arena. So that's why they all chose careers to somewhat to stay involved with the game.
Now you guys have a really close knit family, and I think Brittany, you got a more recent
Yeah.
picture of the family.
Hmm.
So what does life look like now for you as Jim is his career? Obviously, he's still doing some. He's still active, but you're a grandmother now.
Oh
So what
yeah,
what does that look like for you now?
a lot of traveling. I travel a lot because my kids are all over the place. I was just in Seattle for a baby shower for our grandchild number four is on the way in August, so I had the chance to go there, which was a lot of fun. And then my other two grandchildren live in Milwaukee area. So because Korea's there, and we go to Milwaukee, and then I have one. My son Kendall's currently in Germany, so I see them via Skype or via WhatsApp because we don't really get to go to Germany all the time or anything like that. So hopefully they'll be home at the end of June. And then the last one coming in will be living in California, where my one of the triplets is at work at UC Berkeley in their sports arena. So
Okay.
it gives me an opportunity to travel a lot because Jim's still on the road with the Cavaliers because he does all the games, like I said, just like playing, but he's just broadcasting. So I try to coincide my schedule when he's on the road, like extended road trips. That's when I get on the road as well to try to go and travel and see my grandkids. and my
Okay.
children, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
wonderful son-in-laws. They don't mind me coming, bugging the kids and coming to visit. So it's been great. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So we this has just been a treat for us, because we've talked about, where are the women in sports, and
Hmm.
it's just so great to hear your story. If you could think about one word or just a piece of advice to give, current wives or girlfriends or what have you that are in the sport or moving into that transition, because a lot of athletes now are retiring,
Yeah.
what would be something that you would give, like a nugget or a gem, to give to the wives of current athletes or that are retiring?
Well, patience. You have to have patience. Um, Encouragement, because it's going to be a different lifestyle for them once they stop playing it and the noise comes down from the crowd and coming back to reality, just being a normal way. And communication, you have to be able to communicate how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and do things together as a family. But just those are the main things I could tell them, because it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a transition period. Some guys do it easily, other guys don't, because they're so used to being in that arena, and all of a sudden becoming a quote unquote normal person, it can be very difficult and challenging. Yeah.
Well, we are super excited. We had our first studio guest.
Thank
Woo!
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome.
I mean, I've known the family for over 30 years, and you guys have just, I mean, I'm happy that we were able to bring this to life. And again, since we are now at the point of finishing the NBA season, and
Right.
we move into the heart and the nuts and bolts of the W, we sometimes forget the impact that wives, families, what toll being a professional athlete can take. And
Hmm.
just you being here and sharing your story, we're honored.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
thank
so
you.
happy. Hopefully, you felt that this time was good for you
Oh,
too.
yeah, it was. It was. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right. Well, thank you to our audience for staying with Girls Are Players too. We hope
Okay.
you have an incredible day.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.